Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a talking head video where we are just going to quickly discuss which video card should be getting your dollars if you are building a new gaming PC right now. Which, by the way, it's October 2016, just in case you're curious. Okay guys, so I want to keep this pretty informal with how I'm going to go through this and the cards that I recommend. First of all, I'm going to be recommending all NVIDIA cards, and the reason for that is the GTX 1060s are outperforming the RX 480s in most cases right now, and the price points are pretty similar or identical in most cases. However, if you are an AMD fan, when I recommend the 1060, go ahead and insert the 480, the RX 480, because that's a great card anyways. So without any more disclaimers to go by, let's go ahead and jump right into it. And you'll see that I have a chart pulled up in front of me. And let me transition over to that for you. And this is simply a 15 game average that PC Gamer did for its review of the GTX 1070s. Now, obviously the 1060 is not listed whatsoever here, but we'll make do when we get to that sort of resolution that I want to talk about with those. The things I'm focusing on with this chart are the 1080 and the 1070, which are at the very top, outperforming the last generation Titan X's, and that becomes important here in a minute. Now, the blue is the 1080p resolution, the average FPSs. Now, you'll notice that there is a minimum FPS listed and the average. So the 1080, for example, averages 132 FPS at 1080p. That's crazy high. Unless you're gaming on a 1080p monitor that has 144 Hz refresh rate, you will not need a 1080, or you won't even really want a 1080. Same goes for the 1070 for that matter. It has a minimum of just right at 80 FPS, and that is the minimum on average for these 15 games. So again, the 1070 is overkill for 1080p gaming. And I'm on sort of lump 900p and even 720p in with this. If I am you and you are buying or building a computer that is going to be running 1080p games, then I'm going to recommend that GTX 1060 or the RX 480 if you're an AMD fan, because the 1070 is just overkill, the 1080 is also overkill. And here's what we're looking at here. You can get the 1060s, and this is going to be the 3 gig version, by the way, for $200. And the 3 gig version is actually still going to be pretty good for your 1080p gaming. If you want to move up, though, to the 6 gig versions, then you're still going to only be shelling out $240, $250 plus your tax, that sort of thing. So at RX 480 prices, you can get a 1060 with the full 6 gigs of GDDR5 memory, and it's going to be maxing out settings on your 1080p games for the most part, and you'll be getting that 60 FPS that you're looking for, generally speaking. Now, if we go back to this chart and you want to step it up to the orange, which is the 1440p gaming, then now is going to be where we start to look and start to consider things like the GTX 1070. And yes, by the way, I am purposely just looking at current generation cards. Obviously, if you get really good deals on certain older generation cards, 980 Ti for example, then you may want to go that route. But for our purposes, we're looking at the 1070 here because we are getting an average of about 77 frames per second with minimum still above 40. So even the minimum, even if it stutters and goes down to 44, like it is listed as the minimums for the average of these 15 games by PC Gamer, then you're still looking at very playable frame rates, and it is averaging over 60. So chances are most of the time you're going to be either locked at or at least very close to 60 FPS. Again, unless you're carrying a really high-end monitor that's a 1440p gaming monitor that may have either 100 or 120 or 144 Hz refresh rates, then there is no reason to go above a 1070 at that resolution, because you are better off. If you look at the cheapest 1070s on Newegg right now are just under 400, and the cheapest 1080s are just over 600. So you're better off spending that $220 on other things like a really nice gaming keyboard, really nice gaming mouse, or even maybe even an upgraded monitor, or just putting it in the bank for future upgrades or just spending it on games instead, because ultimately here we're trying to game first. So if you're at 1440p, then your target card is going to be that GTX 1070, at least until AMD answers with their own graphics cards that are a little bit more geared towards the high end. Hopefully either very late this year or very early next year we'll hear more about those cards. Last but not least, if you're a 4K gamer or you're on a 1440p monitor that's a very high-end monitor, I'm talking about those like Acer, I think it's Predator gaming monitors with G-Sync or 4K, then and only then would I recommend going either the 1080, or if you have no real budget concerns and you're just wanting the most powerful card possible, then you can go ahead and hop for that GTX or that GeForce Titan XP. Reason for that is very obvious on our chart here, the 2160p, otherwise known as 4K. Both cards are going to struggle. The GTX 1070 is going to struggle to pull great frame rates as well as the 1080. The Titan XP is not going to be an exception here. So you want the most powerful single card solution you can get. Now here's the beauty of the current generation cards, at least from the NVIDIA side. If you decide to put a couple 1070s in SLI, they're going to outperform a 1080. And you're not paying that much more for a couple 1070s. So here's the upgrade path that I would go through if I were you. I would start with the 1070 if you're already if you're planning on eventually gaming at 4K but you're not there yet, maybe you don't have the monitor yet. I would start with a 1070, and then eventually once you upgrade that monitor, then you can upgrade to an SLI 1070 situation. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to get a really high-end graphics cards before you get a 4K monitor. Same way, those are just sort of your price brackets that I would recommend staying within. Hopefully, all this makes a little bit of sense. Again, if you're an AMD fan, then go with the RX 480 if you're a 1080p gamer. If you're a 1440p gamer or above, you're really going to be pushed to find anything from AMD that's going to suit your needs while maintaining a good price to performance ratio. At that point, you're really going to have to switch to NVIDIA, or alternatively, you can sort of just play the waiting game with AMD until they come out with some higher end cards. Hopefully, we'll be hitting the market next year. Well guys, I hope today's video was at the very least a little bit insightful or helpful for those of you that are going ahead and building that computer of your dreams in the very near future. If you like this type of content, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below, also that like button down below, because those help me out a lot. I'm through here. I will see you guys in the next video.